Brothers and sisters in Christ, welcome to a new video. My name is Brother Daniel, and today we're going to be talking about Joseph's story. So just a recap from last week, we learned about Jacob's story, we learned about his upbringing, we learned about how he make his peace with Esau, and he continued his life with his wife Rachel and his wife Leah. So it happened that, like I explained last video, Jacob, he had a lot of children from his wives, and one of the youngest children that he had, that was with Rachel in his old age, was called Joseph. Joseph, he was quite different from his brothers, and Jacob, he really loved him. He loved him so much that he gave him a coat of many colors, which made the other brothers of Jacob kind of feeling jealous, like Jacob was treating Joseph in a special way. Well, this didn't help at all, this feeling of Joseph being special, because Joseph, he started to have visions, and in his visions could be provocative. And to know more about his visions, I'm going to read here a couple of verses that we find in Genesis 37. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hate him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brother said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hate him yet more for his dreams. So basically, here his brothers were kind of like, Father Jacob kind of like has a higher preference for his younger son Joseph, and now he's having a dream saying that he will rule over us. Well, if this could not get worse, it happened that Joseph, he had another dream, and in this dream he said that he saw the sun, the moon, the sun representing his father, the moon representing his mother, and 11 stars, which were the rest of his brethren, kind of bowing down to him. And when he shared his dream to his brothers, obviously they were super angry and jealous, and even his father could not protect him this time and even rebuke him. Like, Joseph, keep it low, if you have those dreams, maybe you should keep to yourself. One day, some of the brothers of Joseph, they were with the flocks, with the sheep, and Jacob, he asked Joseph to go to help his brothers. And some of his brothers, like the oldest one, Reuben, they saw this as an opportunity. Why? Because he will go alone, and they could basically try to intimidate him. And that's what they did. They followed Joseph, they digged a hole, a pit, and they threw him to a pit. Later on, when they did that and they went back to have some food, they kind of start feeling bad in their conscience. And a group of his brothers, that the leader was Judah, they found Joseph in the pit, and they thought that maybe they should not kill him because they were his brothers, so if they will kill him it will be really bad, but they could fake his death and sell him. And why did they have this idea? Because he was passing a group of Ishmaelites, which were kind of like gathering slaves, and what Judah and some of his brothers did is that they sold Joseph to this group of Ishmaelites, and they fake his death. They ripped up his coat of many colors, and they put it with blood, and they rip it off so it looked like a wild animal had attacked Joseph and killed him. Well, what happened is that his brothers, they came back to Jacob, and they show him the coat of many colors and say, Is not this the coat of Joseph? And Jacob, he saw that it was, and he felt really sad. The scripture said that he cried for days and mourned for days because he thought his son was dead. Joseph, later on, he traveled as a slave, and he went to the house of Potiphar. There, Potiphar, he really liked Joseph because although he was a slave, he worked really well, he did a lot of amazing things, and Potiphar loved so much Joseph that he put him kind of like in a higher position. What happened is that because Joseph is said in the scriptures to be so attractive, it made that the wife of Potiphar, that was his boss, to start to have feelings for him. It got to such a high level that she tried to sleep with him. But Joseph, he was a righteous man, he was a man of God, so he denied wife Potiphar's request, and as a result, wife Potiphar accused Joseph of trying to have something with her, which made Potiphar really mad, and basically Potiphar sent Joseph to prison. During this time, we don't know how long Joseph was in prison, but we know that he was 17 when he was sold as a slave, and he was in prison for many years. And during this time, he met two men specifically. So he met a cupbearer and a baker. So what happened is that Joseph, he was a righteous man and he was really connected with God. And in this prison, many people were starting to have dreams, and they wanted to have like an interpretation of those dreams. And Joseph, he actually showed that he had some kind of capacity. And when the cupbearer and the baker, when they were both in prison with him, they were kind of like sharing this concern. Joseph said, God will reveal to you the dreams if you share with me. And what happened is that both the cupbearer and the baker, they shared his dream to him. To the cupbearer, Joseph, he interpreted that his position will be restored in 3 days, which was really good. But for the baker, actually Joseph said that he'll be executed in 3 days. And well, this actually came to pass, and these prophecies were fulfilled. Because his popularity inside of the prison of interpreting dreams and getting them right was getting popular, the Pharaoh having nightmares, and he was having these weird dreams, and he had his magicians and his wise men, and they were trying to interpret his dream, but no one could actually interpret the Pharaoh's dream in a way that will make him kind of feel satisfied. So he heard about the popularity of Joseph, and knowing the popularity of Joseph, he basically asked him to bring him, and he brought Joseph, and Joseph came to him. And Joseph, he interpreted his dream. Pharaoh, he had two dreams. The first one, he dreamed of cows. So he saw 7 healthy fat cows coming out of the Nile, of the river Nile, and then he saw 7 ugly thin cows came out and ate the fat cows. And he was really concerned with this dream. The second dream that the Pharaoh was really concerned was a dream of the grain, where he saw 7 healthy heads of grain growing in one stalk. Then 7 thin, scorched heads of grain grew and swallowed the good one. What Joseph, he interpreted of the dream of the Pharaoh was the following, is that the 7 fat cows and the 7 good grain heads were meaning 7 years of prosperity, while the 7 thin cows and the 7 thin grain heads were mean 7 years of severe famine. The Pharaoh, when he heard this, he completely kind of felt that this was right, and Joseph, he said that he should appoint a wise man to take over and govern Egypt, so during these 7 years they could accumulate as much food as they could, so they could survive the other 7 years. And what happened is that the Pharaoh, he promoted Joseph. He became one of the main Egyptian governors with the age of 30 years. What can I learn from this story? The first thing that I can learn is how much endurance these people had. Like Joseph, he since birth, he was really connected to God. Is that even as a young person, he'll have visions, and he'll be able to interpret those visions. This shows that he had a really deep connection with God, that he could understand the language of which God was giving him revelation. And that actually allowed him to develop a strong testimony of the existence of God, and also to help others to recognize that God was speaking to them. I find really amazing how Joseph, he had a lot of injustice happening in his life. The first one was being sold by his own family, which is a huge injustice, right? The second is he was doing everything right, he was following God's commandments, but still Potiphar's wife, he put all the blame in Joseph about trying to have something with him, and made him go to prison. So he was judged and he was put in prison for something that he didn't do. And that didn't damage his faith at all, because he stood in prison maybe for 12 years, and still he was so connected with God that he was able to interpret the dreams that these people were having in the prison, and if so, getting an opportunity to serve the Pharaoh and gain his trust. I found so amazing that I believe God, He works in this way with us many times. And I found myself actually in moments of my life that I was doing the right thing, and suddenly I got injustice. Either I loved people and people they abused of my kindness or of my love, or maybe I denied to have a specific job and I felt that that was a step back in my career, or that I didn't go to certain events of parties and I kind of missed out because I wanted to follow God's standards. But what this story teaches about is that if we are obedient and if we trust in God, God will always bless us in the end. It doesn't matter how long it will took. Like for Abraham to have a son, it took him 75 years to have his first son, but to have the real son, it took him 100 years. For Joseph, for him to get the blessings of having a nice career as an Egyptian governor, to have a family and have his children, he needed to wait and be in prison for 12 years. And personally for me, that's such an example that what endurance and trusting in God's timetable, it really makes a huge difference in our lives. I think the biggest attribute that these people understood, it was the attribute of patience, because it didn't matter what happened to them, they knew that somehow further in the future God would bless them, and they knew it that will happen. Third thing, as I spoke on the first, is about the power of really understanding revelation, knowing how God speaks to us and how we can communicate with God. I found really interesting that Joseph, while he was a slave and he was a prisoner, he didn't probably had scriptures around him. He probably didn't have a church that he could attend. And I found really fascinating that although his circumstances did not allow him to grow spiritually, they were actually quite the opposite. His faith was not shaken and his spirituality was not damaged. Joseph, he found ways of connecting with God that allow him to still have a strong relationship and a really sense of connection with God. And I found that really amazing, because sometimes in our lives, unfortunately, depending on our careers, depending on how our life is going, sometimes we will not be able to attend church because we'll be working. Sometimes we'll not be able to read our scriptures because we have a huge exam coming up, or a lot of emergencies start to happen. But what Joseph did is that he, even though he was in circumstances that didn't allow him to be spiritually fed, he found ways to still be connected with God, and he lived those things, and he really constantly sought to be with God. And because he had this desire, even although his circumstances didn't allow him, he had this strong desire to be connected with God. God blessed him at the end. But yeah, guys, I wanted to know what you think about this story of Joseph. I know there are certain details that I didn't mention that I would love for you to share it here in the comments below. So if you like this video, put the like button on it, follow, share it with your friends and families, and hit on the ring bell so when a new video comes, you are notified by it. And yeah, guys, thank you so much and have a blessed week. Bye.